Madridistas, welcome back. Welcome back to the channel. These Euros, what a tournament this is turning out to be. Really, really entertaining. I want to give you my thoughts on the latest matches and how our beloved Real Madrid players are doing. Again, I think, in terms of play, technically, maybe not the best tournament you've ever seen, but in terms of competitiveness and sort of intensity, I think it's turning out to be really, really entertaining. Okay, let me give you my thoughts on the tournament, how our boys are doing, and I'll give you guys a couple of broader comments as well. All right, welcome to the channel. Let's get started. Welcome back. Okay, let's talk about these last few matches. Okay, we'll start with, we got to start with Arda. We got to start with Turkey, Georgia. Okay, I thought this was a really excellent match. I mean, this was so back and forth. There was so much intensity. It was, a little bit sloppy from time to time in terms of possession and technique, etc. But the level of intensity and the kind of desire that each team was out to win, and just made it really, really entertaining. Very high intensity. Look, in terms of the match itself, I think, Turkey, I think deserved to win. They created the majority of the chances, but I think Georgia put up a very brave performance. Kvaratskhelia, I think, was brilliant. I think on this occasion, he was a little bit too far back. I think he was picking up balls a little bit too deep. So I think it took a little bit of the shine off when he got further forward. But I think Kvaradona once again showed us he's just an amazing player. But listen, we have to talk about Arda because, the more this kid plays, the more we're starting to get a feeling for what type of player he is. And, up to the point of the goal, he had played a pretty solid game. I mean, it wasn't, spectacular. He wasn't sort of dominating single-handedly. But he had played a very solid game. And one of the things that you'll notice about Arda, which, I really appreciate, especially because he's so young, is that he plays with a lot of maturity. He always plays into the flow of the play. So he doesn't, up to the goal, a lot of his possessions have been short because he sort of receives the ball, releases quickly. He doesn't try to overdo it. He doesn't try to over-embellish. He doesn't try to steal the limelight or do unnecessary things. He typically plays into the flow of the play, and that means that sometimes you're releasing the ball very quickly, which I think is a sign of real maturity, especially when you're young and you want to show the world how good you are. But up to that point, I'd say very solid match all around, played well. But then the goal was this is what Arda Güler, he doesn't take over matches by taking over possession or picking up the ball all the way in the back and playing in all sorts of different positions all over the pitch. That's not how he does it. He plays intelligently and patiently and waits for his moment. This is a player that's about moments. And he knows that sooner or later he will have a chance and he will have a moment. And more often than not, he converts. I mean, this goal was, as he was setting up to shoot, I was thinking, it's raining, okay, it's cold, rainy, you're not going to be able to get much spin on the ball, you're far away, there's not much of an angle, what are you doing? But of course, he releases just an absolutely incredible shot. It was, I think, that the goal of the tournament up to that point. Shaqiri then had another nuclear bomb subsequently, shortly after this match. But look, Arda is showing us that he's a player that understands moments. And I called him the assassin during the course of the Real Madrid season because that's what he is. He plays well, plays with flow and maturity, but he's waiting for that moment. And when he gets that window, he's just absolutely lethal. So Arda, amazing. I mean, you keep showing us that you need more minutes in Madrid, and I hope you get them. That was fantastic. Okay, the Portugal Czech Republic, that match was a little bit more predictable in the sense that it kind of looked like what you expected it to look like, right? Portugal had tons of possession. It was kind of, most of the match was just one-way traffic. I think a lot of the possession, was a little bit slow and a little bit predictable, which is why I think Portugal dominated the match without creating too many chances. I think a lot of the passing was just predictable, a little bit slow. The midfield, they have have so much talent, but these players are kind of very similar. I mean, if you look at Vitinha, Bruno Fernandes, these, and Bernardo Silva, these are players that, by stature and style of play, they're kind of similar. They're very technical. They tend to opt for the short pass rather than the long pass. They play very well in short spaces. But when you have three of those type of players, there is a temptation sometimes to play windshield wiper football, and there was a bit of that. But overall, I think Portugal played very well. I think that they definitely deserved the victory. The Czech Republic put up a fight. I think Conceição was sort of man of the match and obviously very decisive. And then just a comment on Cristiano, which we have to do since the focus has to be around our boys. Cristiano, he didn't get a lot of service. He didn't get too much service, so he didn't participate that much. I mean, they had him pretty much stuck in the center. He wasn't going off to the wings very much at all. But whenever a ball did go into the middle and he made an attempt on goal, there was always a lot of power and conviction. I mean, you could tell, he just has that extra bit of strength and power. He still creates a lot of danger, and he doesn't need a lot of chances to make things happen. So I thought Cristiano was, intermittent in terms of his participation, but he looked, I think, quite strong and emphatic when he did, have chances to shoot and to strike on goal. So anyway, I thought Chris did okay, and like I say, Portugal, I think, overall deserved it. There was one slightly unsportsmanly type gesture that Cristiano had at the end of the match when they scored the winning goal. He's getting a bit of criticism in the press for sort of taunting the Czech goalkeeper. I don't know what's behind this. Obviously, not a great look. I don't know what led up to that. But anyway, Portugal moves on. They look very good. They look a little bit more innocent than I had expected. Very good on the ball, but lacking in a bit of teeth, I think. Okay, Croatia, Albania. Now, this was an incredible match. I mean, this was just an amazing match. I mean, the last 30 minutes of that match were just so frantic. There was just so much energy. I mean, it was really... Albania, I think, has shown in this tournament that they're a very, very competitive side. And, what they may lack in sort of... I mean, they're not bad on the ball, don't get me wrong, but what they may lack in terms of sort of superstar skill, they make up for it with intensity and commitment. I mean, these guys play with huge amounts of energy and conviction. So, look, I think Croatia, they had the ball. They were obviously in possession, a bit more dominant. They went down. Albania scored first. Again, another early goal, not as early as the one against Italy, but another pretty early goal. Croatia kind of kept insisting and turned the match around. Two very quick goals in succession, and it looked like things would maybe stay that way. But when Albania tied it up at the end of the match, I mean, the minutes following the 2-2 were just insane. I mean, so exciting. The game was, in Spanish we say broken. We say el partido roto. Roto means that there's no midfield. You basically have a group of players on one end, players on the other, and they take turns attacking. There's nothing in the midfield. The match is just one giant counterattack. And it was so exciting because it ended 2-2, but it honestly, in the last few minutes, could have gone either way. But very competitive, very entertaining match. Okay, Germany-Hungary. Germany-Hungary was, I mean, honestly, just... by the way, sorry, we didn't mention Luka Modric. Let's go back to the Croatia match really quickly. Luka he played all 97 minutes. Which is obviously just too much. I think they're putting, quite a bit of pressure on him in terms of, in Madrid, we're able to allocate the minutes and the position to accommodate his physical limitations. But you're talking about a 39-year-old player, and he was playing for most of the match in a kind of that pivot position right in front of the defense. But that is one of the more physically taxing positions that you can play in football, okay? I mean, it's not like being a number 9 or being a center back where you're kind of positionally. I mean, if you're playing that position where you're in the back having to pick the balls up, having to carry them forward, but you have to participate in the attack, it's a lot of work. And you're expected to press the ball because you're always in that critical central part of the pitch. This is a very demanding position for Luka, and I think he's had a modest tournament so far. I mean, he's obviously very skillful, and we can see his quality, but I think that physically this is becoming quite taxing. And I think that you see that in some of the errant passes from time to time that we're not used to seeing from Luka. So I think Luka, look, we love you, but we understand your limitations and we work with them. I think in Croatia they're demanding quite a bit from him, and I think he's struggling a little bit in this tournament. Okay, sorry. Now let's get back to Germany-Hungary. So look, Germany-Hungary, much more predictable. This is what you would expect. This Germany side is fantastic. I think they're just a dominant side that has no weaknesses. I've already told you guys, I think they're my favorite team to win the competition. I thought Hungary could be one of the dark horses in the tournament. I was completely wrong. My dark horses are, blowing up. So Hungary, I think, was a little bit disappointing. They sort of, tried, but it was just the possessions were too short. The Germans are too good at pressing all over the pitch. And when they get the ball, they're just very dangerous. It's just very, very difficult. This Germany side is, I think, very good. Now, Toni Kroos, obviously not. It's funny, now that Kroos is leaving, I mean, we're always aware of how good he is, but I kind of watch him a little bit extra, these days. And it really is remarkable. I remember watching the final of the Champions League again, after, I watched it 2 or 3 times afterwards, and everything goes through Toni Kroos. And the Germany-Hungary match was the same. If you really notice it, every single ball goes through Kroos. He really is the anchor of that team, and he's having a fantastic tournament. Again, I think it's criminal that he's retiring. Rudiger, I think, had a solid match, a little bit slow on a couple of occasions. He did get a yellow card. I get the feeling he's not playing at 100% because he hasn't had to. I don't think Rudiger's really been tested in the tournament so far, but I think he's having a very solid tournament as well. But look, Germany, what can I say? This was sort of a very comfortable 2-0. And, I still think they're favored to win this. Okay, Scotland, Switzerland, this was 1-1 where it was, both teams competed with a lot of intensity. This is, again, something that's a recurring theme in this tournament. Teams are playing with a lot of heart. I mean, everyone's out there to try to win, and they're playing with an intensity that makes it very entertaining, even if the quality of play isn't great. But I think, look, Switzerland had most of the possession, which is something that you would expect. But I think despite having more of the ball, I think Scotland actually looked a little bit more dangerous because in terms of actually creating chances, Scotland felt a little bit more dangerous on the counter. Switzerland had a lot of possession, but looked a little bit fluffy and kind of innocuous at times. But look, McTominay, I thought was fantastic. His goal was great. But this is, again, this is a real, world-class player. I think McTominay I think it's unfortunate that he's coinciding with a very poor period in Man United because I think, a player like McTominay under a sort of Alex Ferguson, I think would have really, really gone places. So I think, he was fantastic, had an excellent match. I thought Xhaka was quite, a bit disappeared in this match. He didn't have the protagonism we would sort of expect. But, listen, Scotland now needs to beat Hungary to have a chance of going through to the next phase. But again, this was a highly competed, technically limited 1-1. That's how I would describe it. Okay, let me just make a couple of broader comments about the tournament and sort of and football, because I think one of the things that this tournament is showing us, why football is so exciting. And there's something very, I've always thought this, there's something very grassroots about football that I've always loved. Okay, it's very, I don't want to use the term democratic because I don't want to, it has political connotations, but it's very grassroots in the sense that, if you're playing golf or skiing or tennis, those are sports that require certain equipment and access to certain facilities, etc. Football is so grassroots. I mean, any wonderful player can emerge out of anywhere. I mean, and you look at videos of Maradona when he was little, playing on the streets of, or Messi, and Rosario playing, in this, Zidane, for example. I remember a documentary seeing the patio where Zizou used to play football in sort of Marseille and like the council homes. You don't need a lot to play. So you end up getting talent from, all parts of the world, which is really cool to see. And another thing that I really, and also it means that you don't have any easy rivals these days. I mean, it's the type of sport where even if you're inferior technically, if you're willing to work harder and fight harder, you can compete with anyone. And we've seen this. I mean, look at Slovakia, Belgium. I mean, Slovakia just, they won with just heart and balls and commitment and working really, really hard and pressing all over the pitch. And so there's something really kind of unpredictable and kind of grassroots about this sport that I love and that you're seeing really, really clearly in this tournament, that you can't take any match for granted. Any rival can make it really hard for you. And that talent is just everywhere where you least expect it. So I think in that regard, this tournament's really showing us what we love about the beautiful sport. So anyway, those are just my thoughts on the tournament. Listen, today we have a big day. We've got Slovenia, Serbia to warm things up. Denmark, England, which will be really interesting because, England was kind of unconvincing. They gave us one great first half, and then the second half was just shit. So I think England has something to prove. And then Spain, Italy, which is always a really tough rivalry, a complete contrast in styles of play. So that will always be a high tension match. But anyway, listen, I just want to share these thoughts with you. I'll come back to you guys in a day or two with thoughts on the next few matches. But thank you for joining me. As always, keep the comments coming. Love you guys. And as always, Ala Madrid.